just a little kid. What the heck is happening? Power scaling debates usually aren't my thing, nor are they my area of expertise. I find a lot of it to be super complicated. There's usually at least months worth of research just to determine which fictional god can beat the other fictional god, and even if you make an informed decision, a lot of people are going to get angry at you anyway. Speaking of which, Giorno deserved to lose against Joker. I honestly think Deathpaddle undersold that one. But recently, I've been seeing some particularly intriguing and deeply unserious matchups against one particular character, and it has had my interest for weeks now. Now, imagine the most powerful characters you can think of. Think of all of their achievements, powers, everything. Just imagine them for a second. Milo Murphy probably low diffs. Okay, thanks Disney. Milo Murphy's Law, the successor to Disney's Phineas and Ferb. Despite fading into obscurity while it was airing, the show has received a lot more attention in the years after its ending. It's super underrated, by the way. I do genuinely recommend it. And some of that attention towards it has been the result of people going back and realizing that Milo Murphy himself is shockingly cracked. For those of you who haven't watched Milo Murphy's Law, the clue is in the name, Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Milo Murphy is the youngest member of the Murphy family and has lived his entire life under the effects of Murphy's Law, causing disasters and all manners of calamity to follow in his wake, and resulting in all kinds of cartoony mishaps and situations. But what sets Milo apart from other fictional characters who are cursed with bad luck is the simple fact that Milo is that guy.
You are the guy. You're capable of being the guy. I had a guy, but now I do. You are the guy.
He is fully equipped and mentally prepared for just about any situation imaginable, and is always quick on his feet. Even if the world around him is falling apart, Milo will likely find a way to survive. And I'm not exaggerating, so naturally a character like Milo is a lot of fun to throw into power scaling debates. To be completely transparent, I was inspired to make my own video on this after watching my friends Chupo and Chewy Dog take a crack at it, so I hope they don't mind if I take this video idea and just put my own spin on it.
Sellout! You're a filthy plagiarist.
Well, fuck the both of you then. And to be completely honest here, it took me a good while to find any character who would actually give Milo a challenge. I'm not exaggerating when I say Milo casually low diffs the majority of characters in fiction. It is not a fair matchup, and I didn't just want to hop on a trend for the sake of it by pitting a coughing baby versus a hydrogen bomb. I wanted to pick out a character who would genuinely give Milo a struggle. Someone who is powerful and capable enough to legitimately give Murphy's Law the middle finger and actually result in an interesting fight. And after cycling through so many of my favorite franchises, and as I was rewatching Chewy's video, my mind naturally came back to JoJo. Oh, come the f*** on. Really? JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is my go-to series when trying to find crazy, stupid, overly complicated powers. I also hope you're at least somewhat familiar with what JoJo is, so I don't have to go into extreme detail on what a stand is. Okay, fine. Stands are the manifestations of one's soul and fighting spirit. Many of them have incredibly unique and convoluted powers, while others are just really good at punching things. Okay, cool, that's about it. There are a lot of super powerful stands in JoJo, but I wanted one who would be a perfect match against the unpredictable nature of Murphy's Law and Milo's ability to prepare for and survive any situation. And since Chewy already tackled Toru and his stand The Wonder of You, a stand perfectly tailored to deal with misfortune directed towards its user, I settled on the next best thing. Funny Valentine, the villain of Steel Ball Run, and his evolved stand, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap Love Train, or just D4C Love Train for short. A similar stand to Wonder of You, but also its complete polar opposite when it comes to how its powers work, both of which have their own ways of dealing with misfortune and protecting their user, making them pretty worthwhile matchups against Murphy's Law. But D4C Love Train specifically interests me because the more I think about it, the more twists and turns in this fight keep popping up in my head. From temporary invincibility, calamity redirection, terrain distortion, there's a lot to think about here, and after exhausting through more fictional characters than I care to list right now, I couldn't find anything more worthy of challenging Milo Murphy. So let's just jump into it. Could Milo Murphy defeat D4C Love Train? Let's find out.
It's my world and we're all living in it.
First, we should go over all of these strengths and weaknesses, starting with Milo. Because if you haven't watched Milo Murphy in its entirety, you might be surprised to find out that Murphy's Law isn't the only thing he has up his sleeve. But speaking of Murphy's Law, we should probably go over it again for consistency's sake. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Every hour of Milo's day is filled with miscellaneous mishaps and random disasters. From something as simple and harmless as tripping over a pebble all the way to a literal llama stampede. Murphy's Law results in all kinds of wacky slapstick scenarios for Milo to duck and dodge through, to, but still has a habit of putting him and his friends in genuinely dangerous situations. Despite Milo Murphy's Law being a cartoon and everything being naturally cartoony and less dangerous than real life, with the exception of a couple scenarios, the effects of Murphy's Law always rely on what is physically possible at that moment. If Milo is near a bunch of traffic and someone drops a used balloon in the road, it's very likely a car is gonna derail and crash into a fire hydrant that will splash Milo and send him flying near a wood chipper. As you can imagine, Murphy's Law is incredibly dangerous to anyone who happens to be around Milo, and many people know to keep their distance from him to avoid being hit by a stray stop sign in the wind or something. Fortunately for Milo, he's prepared for literally anything. Every male Murphy and his family has had to deal with the curse for their entire lives for centuries, and Milo is no different. Ever since he was little, he's been growing more adept at managing the things Murphy's Law throws his way, showing his quick thinking and resourcefulness that prevents him from dying in a freak accident every single day. Hell, he even enjoys it. It's been part of his life for so long that he's accepted it, and enjoys the challenge every day throws at him because he's already expecting it and can successfully execute a plan while still feeling the excitement. On top of this, there's Milo's backpack, easily the most overpowered thing he owns. Originally belonging to his last babysitter, Milo's backpack operates on hammer space. It is literally a bottomless supply of every single thing Milo would ever need in a life or death situation. And I do mean everything, even if he has to sort through some unuseful stuff first, because it's literally crammed with everything he needs. It's so useful, in fact, that whenever Milo doesn't have it on him, he tends to lose a bit of his confidence. It's definitely a crutch he can always rely on, but it shouldn't take away from how resourceful he can be with or without it. All I'll say is, if Milo survives Final Destination and pisses off Death so much that they just give Milo cancer, the backpack is going to give Milo the cure to cancer. So we've established all of this, and this is where a lot of people tend to stop digging too much into Milo's capabilities, either because they're unfamiliar with the show or haven't seen every episode, or because what's already here has a ton of genuinely nuts applications in a real fight if you think about it. You may be thinking, what else could Milo possibly have in his corner? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you. You know how Murphy's Law is an unpredictable chaos curse that happens on a whim? Did you know that Milo can channel Murphy's Law? No, I'm not joking, I just remembered this as I was writing this video, but there is one specific episode of Milo Murphy's Law that shows that depending on how it's applied, Milo can manipulate Murphy's Law to inflict misfortune directly onto other people. Seriously. And it's not even the middle of season 1 or somewhere in season 2, it's the literal second episode of the entire series. Season 1, episode 2, Rooting for the Enemy, has Milo attend his first school football game in years after being assured they're going to lose even without Milo being present to accidentally shake things up. When their team starts doing bad though, Milo starts jokingly rooting for the enemy team. This one action suddenly causes the enemy team to suffer the effects of Murphy's Law, getting even worse once Milo buys a ton of their merchandise and begins rooting for them harder. Even though he didn't mean to support them, Murphy's Law still chose to make their lives hell. This genuinely blew my mind when I remembered it, because it takes Murphy's Law from a powerful but unpredictable chaos curse and turns it into a genuinely overpowered weapon that can inflict misfortune on anyone depending on its application. It's not as simple as Milo going, "Mods, crush his skull, thank you." Like, he can't just point at someone and choose to have them go through hell. But if he's jokingly rooting for someone to win against him, I can see Murphy's Law being a devastating tool to deal with, especially for the average person who does not have Milo's experience. However, even with all of this said and done, it should be noted that at the end of the day, Milo is still a human. He is a normal, mortal being, and does not have superpowered strength, agility, or durability. He'll likely have to fight any JoJo character from a distance, or be really good at dodging them at close range, because a couple of punches is all it's going to take to put him out of commission. Funny Valentine, the 23rd president of the United States and the only US president to obtain a stand, much to the relief of literally everyone. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap is his base stand, and it excels at close range physical combat with its overwhelming strength and speed. But that's not what's interesting about D4C, as it's arguably the most confusing f***ing stand in all of JoJo. D4C allows Funny Valentine to create doorways to access parallel worlds, which also allows parallel worlds to exist in the same time and place as the base universe he exists in. And there's a seemingly infinite amount of parallel worlds for Valentine to choose from. In order to access these doorways, Valentine has to place himself between two objects or surfaces, regardless of their length or width, and this can be accomplished in many ways, like placing himself between a door and a wall, most iconically hiding beneath a US flag on the floor, and sometimes getting as complicated and ridiculous as being between the floor and the actual f***ing rain. It doesn't matter how much much of Valentine's body is covered up. So long as a single body part of his is between two objects or surfaces, he is able to access a parallel world. On top of this, Valentine is able to bring anyone he wants to a parallel world, and is also able to bring anyone from a parallel world to the base universe. This leads to fiascos like the Who Shot Johnny Joestar moment, and it's a great way of confusing the shit out of people. But on top of this, if someone is to interact with their alternate self, either from their alternate self being brought to the base universe or vice versa, they will begin to be pulled together and violently obliterated. This is a method Valentine will sometimes use to dispose of people. The only exception to this rule is Valentine himself, as he is able to bring an infinite number of alternate versions of himself to the base universe and vice versa. Once an alternate Valentine is in the base universe, they will immediately be brought up to speed on what Valentine's goal is. It should be noted that D4C only exists in the base universe, and any alternate Valentine who's brought into the base universe while the Valentine who holds D4C is still alive will not be granted it. This ability to pull alternate versions of himself also makes him nigh on invincible if he's in a scenario where there's two surfaces for him to hide himself between. If he's fatally wounded, he's able to instantly bring an alternate version of himself into the base universe to kind of cheat death. The original Valentine will die, but the replacement Valentine will retain his goals and will also inherit D4C. Now keep in mind, this is all just the explanation for base D4C. As it stands, this is already a crazy stand. It's confusing, it's terrifying, and it's powerful. But now we get to talk about Love Train. D4C Love Train is the evolved version of D4C, being granted after the Holy Corpse is infused with Lucy Steele's body. Love Train on its own is a pretty insane stand, but when combined with D4C, it becomes nigh on unstoppable. What Love Train does is it creates a sort of pocket dimension in the form of a wall of light that originates from Lucy Steele's body. And what this light does is deflect all misfortune that comes upon Funny Valentine while he's standing in it, and transfers the misfortune somewhere else in the world. So if you were to take a shot at Valentine while he's standing in the wall of light, the bullet will be transferred to a completely different location in the world, either right back at you or to some poor bystander thousands of miles away. Love Train also has the side effect of causing the terrain to shift and distort, as it draws objects towards Lucy's body, which is an added unpredictable benefit to Valentine. It's no exaggeration to say that while Valentine is using Love Train, he is completely invincible. He can't be touched. All misfortune is redirected to random places while the terrain around him begins to distort. You'd think with all of the benefits I've explained for D4C and Love Train that Valentine is just impossible for someone like Milo Murphy to defeat. But that's when the negatives start pouring in, and they're honestly kinda crippling when against Milo Murphy, despite all of the odds in Valentine's favor. If he is to attack or inflict any damage at all on someone, he has to exit Love Train in order to do so. He is forced to leave Love Train if he wants to retaliate or attack someone in any way, which in turn leaves him completely open to being attacked in response. If Valentine just stays in Love Train, it results in an endless waiting game as no one can make a move until he leaves it. Not to mention, Love Train can only be activated when at a certain distance away from Lucy's body. If someone were to move Lucy's body to a different location, or Valentine walks too far from it, he can't activate Love Train. Then there's also the fact that despite D4C's strength and speed, it's absolutely miserable at long ranges, which ideally is where anyone wants to be if they wish to attack Valentine successfully. And then there's the obvious fact that if Valentine is outside of Love Train and is to be fatally wounded, if he doesn't have anything around him to put himself between, he's cooked. Despite how easily D4C Love Train could stomp Milo, there's just enough wiggle room here to make Milo a genuine threat to Valentine. So, how would a fight between the President of the United States using a confusingly overpowered ghost that makes him nearly invincible versus a 13-year-old boy wearing a sweater vest and a backpack really go? Well, we've established that if Milo gets within close proximity to Funny Valentine, he's basically as good as dead, and a single punch will likely leave Milo with a giant hole in his chest. But Milo's a smart kid, he knows this, and he's likely prepared, so Milo will likely keep his distance from Valentine at all times. I would say it has to be a distance where Valentine can still be caught up in the effects of Murphy's Law, but we've already established that depending on the application, Milo can channel Murphy's Law and inflict disasters upon people. Again, it's not as simple as him pointing at someone and just imagining them getting hit by a bus out of nowhere, but given the previous application of this power involved Milo intentionally cheering for the enemy team, I think Milo can redirect Murphy's Law towards Valentine by intentionally cheering him on and rooting for him, either in his mind or out loud. If Milo keeps this up for the whole fight, Valentine is going to be dodging calamity at basically every turn, and we know for a fact he's not as well equipped to deal with this level of insanity as Milo is. It's basically inevitable that Valentine gets caught up in the chaos and potentially injured. However, Valentine can still pull alternate versions of himself from parallel worlds as he pleases, so long as he has two surfaces to hide between, and if he does end up in danger, he can just hide in Love Train's pocket dimension and redirect all the damage elsewhere. And on top of this, the terrain around him is going to be shifting around on top of any disaster that Murphy's Law throws on top of him, on top of any redirected damage towards Valentine possibly ending up backfiring on Milo, which could definitely pose a struggle for Milo. Not impossible odds or anything, but it's an extra bit of chaos he he may not be entirely ready for. But with Love Train activated, nothing can really proceed. Valentine just stalls forever until he's ready to attack, and Milo's smart enough to keep his distance so he doesn't get punched or brought to a parallel world, and to not attack Valentine while he's using Love Train. I would say the backpack would probably provide Milo with some insane hacks so he could defeat Valentine within Love Train. After all, Johnny Joestar accomplishes this with Tusk Act 4's Golden Spin, the only known ability that can break through Love Train, but I'd say that's a bit too bullshit and a massive leap from what's usually contained within the backpack itself. I'm obviously not Death Battle, I can't picture in my head exactly how this battle would go, but if you were to ask me if I think it's possible for Milo Murphy to defeat D4C Love Train, I would say yes, but it would take a very long time. I would also say D4C Love Train is very capable of disposing of Milo, but it would be very risky. Milo is always going to be out of D4C's effective range, and is fully equipped to handle the shifting terrain and incoming events courtesy of Murphy's Law. Valentine can only attack Milo by sacrificing his invulnerability, and leaving him open. But if Milo keeps his distance and keeps running away, then Valentine isn't going to be near Lucy Steele's body and thus won't be able to activate Love Train at all. Valentine is also not an idiot and is very aware of this, so either Valentine stalls with Love Train for eternity, not letting himself or Milo do a damn thing to each other, or Milo inevitably inflicts a Murphy's Law catastrophe upon Valentine, beating through all of his parallel selves and finally managing to injure Valentine once he's out of Love Train. It's an inevitability given Milo's particular strengths. The only way the battle would continue on from there is if Valentine has something to hide himself between so he can escape and retrieve a fully healed version of himself from another timeline. But even then, the cycle would just continue. Either Valentine stalls until Milo gives up and leaves, or Milo eventually wins. It's not an easy fight for Milo either. He has to juggle a lot in order to survive, but he is very capable of doing so. And even if he's received a bad but non-fatal injury, his backpack's got him covered when it comes to medical supplies. Valentine and his parallel selves will likely be carrying guns, but they aren't going to be super useful when there's like 5 Murphy's Law events happening around them. It's a war of attrition against one kid who can wipe out his opposition by just jokingly rooting for them. So while I can't provide a definite answer on the actual fight, could Milo Murphy defeat D4C Love Train? Absolutely. I won't lie, discovering Milo could channel Murphy's Law depending on his application was an absolute game changer and made his matchup a lot easier for him, but I still think this is a fascinating matchup. Love Train is such a stupidly overpowered ability, and if Valentine was fighting anyone else, he'd probably have no problem exiting Love Train just to get up close and kill them. But Milo being able to sit back from a distance and mentally channel a tornado full of cows or something like that to come crashing down on Valentine makes Love Train a bit of a hindrance, honestly. I think the fact Milo not only stands a chance of winning against not only one but 2 of the strongest JoJo stands that are nigh impossible for anyone else to take on really puts into perspective just how broken he is in power scaling debates. Like, I'm not saying he's gonna beat Goku by having a planet-sized anvil fall on his head or anything, but I really want to know what Milo would actually lose against that isn't a full-on universe buster. Again, I'm obviously not an expert power scaler or anything, so if you have any insights into how a fight like this would go, then let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I don't know how to end this. Play Yakuza or something.